Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of season 2 of Garbage Time Takes. I'm your host, Derek, and with me today is Bobby
Bobby.
and Dennis in spirit, because as you can see, uh, based on Bobby's virtual background currently, Dennis is not with us today. He had more important things to do, allegedly, like take a
Allegedly.
red eye flight. And so Dennis is not able to join us this week, but me and Bobby felt the show must go on. We have to give the people an episode this week with or without Dennis. So, Bob, what are your thoughts on Dennis abandoning us this week?
I know he'll watch this, so I can't wait for him to see this butte. But Dennis is, I think, as you know, Derek, an annual pod skipper, known for missing
Correct.
pods flagrantly whenever we have him scheduled. If it's constantly running out for various reasons, most of them, basically all of them, have to include with the woman in his life. All I could say to Dennis at this time is I think it's time to get the priorities in order, and because Derek and I are sending GTT to the moon over here, whether you're here or not.
Correct. I mean, we got to know, Dennis, are you with us or are your priorities elsewhere?
Be
Because
correct.
me and Bobby are dedicated to taking GTT as far as it can go. Um, I mean, Bobby, what about in season 1 of Garbage Time Takes when Dennis came in like halfway through
I mean,
and we
came in halfway through. I think he came in halfway through in an absolute panic attack, as I recall, and then
correct.
and then another pod just completely missed because, and once again, prior commitments. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, and not to mention we could never record on Fridays in season one ever because Fridays were just completely off limits, and we were all busy college students back then, so Fridays were when we were trying to get dialed in. But it's okay. Dennis has got weddings and more fun things to do than hang out with us. But couldn't even get a call in tonight for a cameo. But it's okay. It's
Unbelievable.
okay. It's okay. We'll just have to continue to bash him for the rest of the pod.
Whenever an opportunity presents itself, Dennis will be slandered for his absence.
Correct.
All right. Well, speaking of people who are going to be absent, Deshaun Watson will be absent for the first 11 games. Not to put Dennis and Deshaun Watson in the same sentence. Sorry, Dennis. But Deshaun Watson officially will be out for the first 11 games of the season for Cleveland. And they're also slapping him with what I believe is a $5 million fine, which the NFL said they will donate to organizations that fight domestic violence and sexual assault and things of those nature. So, Bob, any, just sort of final thoughts? This topic's been beaten it's been beaten pretty good. No pun intended. Uh, 11 games, over half the season. To me, it feels like a sort of compromise was reached where initially it was what, 5 or 6 games. The NFL wanted the full season, and they split it basically right down the middle at 11.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this. At least Dennis and I did. I'd like to get Dennis's take, but obviously not here as we just discussed. But we discussed it last week a little bit, and I was kind of talking last week about how, I didn't really think, obviously the findings of the original case were not really much in dispute. Deshaun was guilty on all counts as found by the independent investigation. I don't think really anybody, including the court of public opinion, really needed to hear too much more on that. But I was a little bit, intrigued, maybe a little concerned about how this, process of coming to a actual, length of suspension of punishment was going to be reached. And I'm glad to see that, both sides were able to sit down and work out an agreement rather than,
Roger Goodell laying down the iron fist like he used to.
rather than Roger Goodell laying down the iron fist. I just kind of thought that defeated the purpose of a whole judge and arbitration process. I know Dennis had other thoughts last week, but I think if you're gonna put that process in place, you gotta live by it and you gotta die by it. And NFL, I think, kind of gets to have its cake and eat it too in this case because they get to look like they went out there and they appealed the decision. They went out there and fought for more games. They ended up getting more games because obviously they had the ultimate trump card with another appeals judge that they could have appointed that was just going to give them the a full season and $8
Yeah, a
million.
guy in Roger Goodell's back pocket.
Correct. So I think that in terms of actual football, it gets them back this season with some potentially some important games at the end of the season for the Browns. Who knows where they'll be at? I've heard some talk, at least on national media, about potentially trading for Jimmy G, maybe trying to get him in there as the stopgap quarterback for a season. They got some other guys there, one of which being Josh Rosen, who Dennis and I discussed at length on another day. But I'm glad to see, from a moral, personal standpoint, that a harsher punishment was inflicted. I think everybody thought it was due, but also at the same time, we still kind of get a little bit of poetic justice in terms of like the actual arbitration process being like worked out.
Yeah. Bob, do you think Baker Mayfield is vindicated at this moment? Do you think he's enjoying watching Cleveland burn?
I think he was vindicated from the moment that this man was signed to the roster. It just kind of, because they had, like everybody has talked about 100 times, they always said that they wanted an adult in the room when referring to the quarterback. And then the first thing that they went and did was sign another quarterback who had way more issues than anything that Baker was doing, any little showboating or whatever that was, apparently not being an adult for Baker Mayfield. So, I think it just kind of makes them look a little bit worse than he. So, I guess in that sense, yes, he's vindicated, which is good for me as a Baker fan.
Yeah, well, we don't need to, harp on that whole situation too much. It was good to get your thoughts. I'm pretty much in agreement. I don't really have anything else to add to it. So moving on, Bob, did you get a chance to watch Hard Knocks this week?
Oh, baby, I was all over Hard Knocks this week, and it was a great episode.
Let's go.
Oh,
Let's go. Since we were both able to watch it, and we know for sure Dennis didn't watch it. We had some pretty good storylines. It was much more player focused this time around, where episode 1 was more staff focused. Got a nice little segment on David Blau and his wife. It's too bad David Blau isn't as athletic as her, because then maybe we'd have a competent backup quarterback. I had a nice little piece on Malcolm Rodriguez, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that.
We had the linebackers coach, Shep. He was letting the other linebackers in the room know that Rodrigo was coming for their job, so they better pick it up.
And did I see that? Not to get too far off track, but did I see that he was one of the highest rated players this week in preseason ball?
I think so. I think at least on the Lions anyway, he was a high rated defender.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him.
Yeah. What else did we have? We had
classic Dan Campbell just giving speeches left and right, which is what everybody tunes in for.
We had Aaron Glenn, the line in the sand, Bob. The line in the sand.
My favorite part.
Do you want to tell the people about your
my history with that?
Yeah, your own volition and your own passion for the line in the sand.
Well, it was a great point. Seeing Aaron Glenn use that phrase really just stuck a personal chord with me. I don't know how many times through my 4 years of knowing you both of you, I've said that this week has got to be a proverbial line in the sand, and it's got to be put on the line. And I'm glad that literally to hear somebody in the franchise you're rooting for saying it's time to draw the line in the sand. It's time for us to put up or shut up kind of thing. Is really an epitome of what I keep preaching all the time with professional sports, which is you've got to know where your fan base is at. If you want to deliver, you got to know where your fan base is at. And I think that more and more with this regime, and this is why, the Lions are making Hard Knocks, the Lions are, guarding fans, not only, countrywide, but reigniting fans within their own fan bases just because the fan, this regime, of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell really understand, and Aaron Glenn for that matter, as is shown by the clip, really understand the vigor, the fight, that the fans want to see. We just don't want to go out there and die, which is what we've done many a season. And so, hearing that phrase in particular, after having used it so many times myself, was just massive.
Yeah, it was awesome because for how many years have we been saying that in order for the Lions to have a winning culture, they needed to bring in players who were previous winners? And sure enough, Aaron Glenn said, Jonah Jackson,
Winners and
how many games
tangibles.
did you lose at Ohio State? One game. Michael Brockers, how many games did you lose when LSU won the title? One game. You know what I mean? And so for him to be like, let's get that feeling back where we wake up every day and know that we're going to win. That was pretty cool to see.
It's time. It's time to draw it, Derek. It's time to draw it.
That's right.
I don't want to see another.
Yeah.
I don't want to make another paper bag this season.
Correct. The Aiden Hutchinson family in the suites was a little cringe. I don't know why they had the cameras so uptight on them, but I don't know. It was cool to see Aiden Hutchinson break out the Michael Jackson dance.
That was super fun. That was super fun.
Yeah, he snapped on that. And then the other thing was Amon-Ra St. Brown listing off all of the wide receivers drafted ahead of them and their university. That man has a chip on his shoulder, and that was pretty sweet.
Not the first time we've seen a player do that, but every time that a player does that, it always gets serious. I mean, the only other player that I know, I know it's been done more than this, but the only other player I know that did that was Draymond Green, and being drafted way late in the second round. So seeing the similarities there was just, I knew how much of an edge Draymond plays with. So I'm like, if Amon-Ra can bring, a fifth of that to the table, we're gonna be in business.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's cringe, like when the aforementioned Josh Rosen was like, all the teams that passed on me in the draft are going to regret this. But this was different because, one, the Sun God produced in year one.
Correct.
Like, he broke the Lions rookie record for receiving yards and receptions, I'm pretty sure. And then he's a dude that has a look of, I took it real personally when all those dudes that are bums got drafted ahead of me. And not to mention his dad throwing strays at KD.
Well,
I love KD did a calf raise.
Oh no. I mean zoinks. But
I mean when Mr. Universe, two-time Mr. Universe is training our wide receivers.
we're in a good spot.
We got to be in for something good.
Yeah, to get to your point about the, saying it without having shown anything, I think that nobody wants to hear that from you before the season, before you've even done. Like, nobody wants to hear that from you before your first year. But once you've shown, once you've proven yourself in the league, then it's like, man, look how dumb all these teams were, to not draft me. Once you've broken all those records, and if you're Draymond, won all those championships, won Defensive Player of the Year or whatever, it's like, wow, you guys got these bums, and then then there was me at the 900th pick. So
yeah, and then we had Dan Campbell. I mean, how good do you have to be if you're Josh Reynolds and even your nicknames have nicknames?
That's massive.
I mean, he's the Serpent of Death. And what was the other one?
I definitely remember the Serpent one, but I did not remember the other.
I don't know. He's got a bunch. He's like a praying mantis. And
that was it. The praying mantis.
Yeah, the praying mantis, the Serpent of Death. I think he's like Mr. Smooth or something like that too. Mans has got nicknames up the
better come out there and produce. That's all I gotta say.
Correct. And then Dan Campbell at the end. I thought it was cool to see sort of the post-game speech of a preseason game. Like, for some of you guys, this is the end of the road. And, hopefully made the most of your opportunities. I thought that was kind of cool because he sort of rides that line between instilling confidence in his players and also being realistic and saying if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And I think he does that really well.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking in that regard because you know that this is like a dream come true to be even out in on a field for a lot of these guys, and knowing that they're just not going to make the cut, like you said, you got to ride that line well, and I think DC did that for us.
Yeah. But yeah, I think one last thing just about the Lions in general. When you were saying how the regime understands what sort of the fans feel, I think it really helps that Dan Campbell was on that 0-16 team. And
Yes.
so he knows what it means to play in Detroit. And he said it a number of times in a multitude of interviews that he doesn't shy away from like Detroit's recent history of being not so good and trying to use that and be like, hey, I'm going to be the person that changes, how the league views the Detroit Lions. So I thought episode one was pretty good. I thought episode two was much better because it was much more player focused and um, I thought the storylines were much better. I did enjoy Aaron Glenn and Deuce Staley ribbing each other in episode one and all that, but um, looking forward to episode three for sure.
Yes. Correct. And for the start of the season.
And definitely, we're a couple weeks out still, but I'm trying not to get too jittery because at some point I won't be able to contain myself. But yeah,
Fair,
definitely 1 week at a time, Bob. 1 week at a time.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I guess that probably really wraps it up for any NFL talk we have.
I agree.
Considering Dennis has abandoned us, and so we can't really get into the bigger topics that we might want to talk about. So instead, we'll flip we'll flip the switch. Talk about some college football. 2 weeks away, Bob.
Oh,
2 weeks away. Michigan State will take the field against their respective opponents. I don't know if we want to alternate sort of like week by week how we see like each week progressing, and then
yeah.
at the end
That
we'll
was
have what our respective records for what we think
and
our
overall
teams will be.
thoughts. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after sort of me and Bob do our more in-depth Michigan State looks, we'll sort of do a brief, sort of talk about how we think the rest of the Big Ten will shape up and our Big Ten championship prediction. So, Bob, go ahead and start us off with MSU's Week 1 opponent and what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So week one, always important to start off on a high note, and I think. I'm not going too far out on a limb here when I say that I think that the MSU Spartans will get it done at home in a 7 p.m. game though on ESPN against the Western Michigan Broncos. The schools from the MAC always do tend to play like it's the Super Bowl against the MSU Spartans. We won't discount that,
Correct.
but I think we'll be ready. I think we can mark week one down as a dub. That's what I got for us.
I mean, that's a double win for you as a CMU Chippewa
That's right.
yourself.
That's
You
right.
get you get the double dose of victory if Western loses.
Well,
Um,
any increased chance of CMU winning the conference is exactly where I want to be at.
Correct. Yeah, same story for us. We get Colorado State at home at a brisk noon game, September 3rd, which is actually 9 a.m. for me out here in Arizona. We're on
Oh,
Pacific time right now, so I'm going to have to get up at 9 a.m. to watch Michigan, I hope, beat the brakes off of Colorado State. Really not too much to say other than that. Big House should be rocking.
I guess moving quickly into week two for the Spartans. Then once again, a school that I really take no delight at all in us beating the brakes off of, as I've got us picking up our second win of the season, going 2-0 through 2 weeks. The Akron Zips at home,
Oh no!
4 p.m. on the Big Ten Network is going to be rocking. Zippy will be present. Sparty will, I'm sure, be beating the brakes off of him, both figuratively in the mascot duel and literally on the football field, because Akron this would be upset of all upsets, no chance.
Bob not beating the brakes off of Zippy.
Zippy, great mascot, just horrible teams to represent it.
Did it have to be done?
I mean, Unfortunately, it does have to be done because, I mean, we're trying to make bowl eligibility, dang it. And that's going to be a crucial game.
Correct. We've got the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors for week
I
two,
hope they're coming to
8 p.m.
you.
Eastern. What's
I
that?
hope they're
Yeah, they're
coming to
coming to
you.
us. They are coming to Ann Arbor. We're probably paying them a good amount to make the trip. That'll be 8 o'clock Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Pretty much same old, same old. Two green teams to start the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm predicting, big 30-point plus victories, and Michigan will either improve on or maintain their number 8 AP poll ranking.
I mean, hopefully move up and have somebody hit the skids already right off the bat.
I mean, with Ohio State Notre Dame week one, number 2 versus number 5, someone should
Somebody's
be
hitting the
dropped.
skid. And speaking of hitting the skid, I've got the Michigan State Spartans hitting the skids in week 3 when they are going to have to go to, on a 7:30 ABC primetime game, go to Washington. And I predict that that will be a stumbling point for us as in a big game, first big game of the year, big bump in competition, just not going to have what it takes to get it done.
Oh no.
I mean,
Not the Huskies knocking you off.
Washington hasn't been great recently, but they've made some adjustments. I believe they brought in a new coach.
They did.
And I definitely could see that being a game that's just right down to the absolute wire. And if it's one of those things where with every season, if it comes down to the wire and you win those games, you're gonna have a good year. And if it comes down to the wire and you lose those games, you're just kind of eh. And I just don't have a great feeling about it. So I'm gonna go L on that.
That game just screams slugfest. I don't know why, but it just, screams slugfest to me. I'm gonna flip the script a little bit. We get the Yukon Huskies,
Oh
literally
my
one of the
gosh!
worst, like one of the worst college football programs
What is
of all
this?
time.
What is this scheduling?
I mean, we went pretty soft the first 3 weeks. I mean, never forget, wasn't UConn like one of like 2 wins that CMU had in their 2-win season our sophomore year?
Yes, I think they
Yeah,
were.
yeah. So UConn, they've been not very good. Jim Mora might be able to help turn it around, but certainly not by week 3 with the state of that program. Noon, ABC, U of M is going to dominate for the third straight week.
Dude, I mean, no doubt, no doubter. Week 4 home against the Golden Gophers of Minnesota, and I've got that chalked up as a dub for the MSU Spartans. I just really don't have much respect for Minnesota at all. Their current, I mean, they were good a couple years ago, but they've kind of took a massive hit. I mean, their freaking division is weaker than, I mean, toilet paper, Charmin Ultra. Not even Charmin. I mean, we're talking 2-ply here, but so I mean, they might be able to make some waves in their own division, but I just don't. I don't see Minnesota coming to East Lansing and making a splash. I think we right the ship after, kind of that high at Washington slugfest. But we bring that same energy the next week, and we're able to just outslug Minnesota, who won't be ready.
Yeah, that game's one of those games where it feels like if it was at Minnesota, they might get you, but I mean, in East Lansing, I'm with you, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why everyone's so high on Minnesota as well this
Not
year.
me.
I don't know what they've done to earn that sort of respect, but
I haven't seen any. I mean, the only reason, like I said, the only reason I can think of anyone who would be high in Minnesota is because just lack of competition within division.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
they're one of the
Michigan.
teams that has any given year that maybe could win it, but compared to where their talent was, I think it's kind of fallen off a cliff.
Yeah. Week 4, we get an early sort of sleeper game. Maryland at home, homecoming. Everyone, for some reason, thinks Tua's brother Talia is going to pop off this year. I'm not one of those people. Until Maryland proves to me that they can lose by like less than 30 points to us, I'm going to assume we're going to beat them by like 30 points because unless he becomes like Deshaun Deshaun Watson overnight and just starts throwing lasers all over the field and doesn't throw interceptions like every other drive, I just don't see how Maryland is going to be able to do anything. I don't know, for whatever reason, Maryland always seems to get a bunch of like early season hype, and I just don't see it.
And I'm
Just don't see it.
and I'm right there with you. I mean, that's a cruising into 4-0. I think for the Wolverines there. I mean, I guess I'll kind of move on to MSU's next game because it's at Maryland the following week. I've got that for us as a dub for along the same reasons you just said. I mean, they haven't proven diddly squat against the Spartans in some time. I mean, even when we were barely. I mean, I remember sitting out in the cold of like the end of November in our last regular season game of like a season like 3 years ago, and we won that game against them to make bowl eligibility when we were horrendous.
I
And
remember that. It was the game that decided bowl eligibility for both of you, I think.
correct, and MSU ended up winning that in like the final seconds. And the thing is that Maryland's offense, okay, they might be a little bit better, but their defense, once again, what's their defense proven? If we're going to talk about the offense, I mean, I don't fear Maryland's defense. I mean, so, I mean, I think that game is close because number two factors, it's at Maryland, and if they pass with any sort of vigor like they're predicted to, that could be trouble for us. But I think we play time of possession on that one. We kind of just wear Maryland down on the run game, and that is enough if we can hit them, pop them in the mouth to start. So I'm going to give us that one.
I would as well. Here's where it gets interesting. Michigan plays their first road game of the year. Now we're getting into the part of the schedule where
I'm a little
we're
concerned.
not going to really know the times
Yeah, same,
or
same.
broadcasts. Kinnick Stadium. If I had to guess, I was going to want to play us at night. Blackout. That's my guess. Hopefully not,
That's
but
100%. 100%.
that just screams we want revenge for you kicking the absolute, mud out of us in the Big Ten championship game. But unfortunately, I think Iowa's defense will still maintain a pretty good level, but they're not going to be forcing 3 interceptions a half every other game again. I just don't see them being.
Maintaining that.
I mean, part of turnovers is creating your own luck, but they were unbelievably lucky with some of the turnovers that they were able to force last year. So I don't see that happening. I have zero faith in Spencer Petras or whatever other
Nope.
quarterback that
Yeah.
Iowa decides to throw
Yep.
out there. And even though people think Michigan's defense is bound to take a step back, um,
I mean, even if they
I saw
do, I don't see
even if
Spencer
they do, it's
Petras
not
throwing
going to
all over
happen.
him. I mean, Spencer isn't going to throw all over him. And their
It's not.
front is always one of the strongest parts of the Michigan defense. So, I mean, they probably have a good run game. They'll probably, do what they always do and clang and bang and, run. I mean, the thing is that if Michigan's offense catches any sort of fire, there's no way Iowa's keeping up with them. And
Correct.
and so, and so
I think
that's yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we sort of even like got into the schedules without really breaking down our teams to begin with.
Yep.
So I guess since we're talking about a solid opponent in Iowa, I might as well break our team down. Offensively, we have an offense that returns basically everybody from last year except Hassan Haskins. All of our skill positions are back. There's still an ongoing battle between Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy, and perhaps I'll save that discussion for another day when Dennis is present. But Michigan's offense has a chance to be top five, top 10 in the entire country, I think. And the defense, everyone always, you know, oh, you guys don't have two elite NFL pass rushers. Nobody was talking about David Ojabo going into the season last year as a guy that was going to put up double-digit sacks. Not a single person. Aiden Hutchinson was a guy who Michigan fans were high on, and maybe the rest of the country was too. But even Aiden hadn't really shown a whole lot going into last season. And one thing Michigan defenses do is their front four is always very good. Like I said on Twitter, I'm pretty sure I saw a stat that every year since 2016, we've had at least 33 sacks. Every single year. Like it's consistently 33 and a half, 34 and a half, 35 and a half. So for all the people saying that Michigan can't win and they need to replace, NFL talent on the edge, it's not like we haven't had NFL talent on the defensive line before. Had guys like Chris Wormley coming off the edge, Chase Winovich coming off the edge, Quiddy Pay coming off the edge. It's not like we've had some bums on the edge and Aiden Hutchinson just popped off out of nowhere. What I am a little bit concerned about, which was also my concern last year, and Georgia ended up blowing the crap out of it, is our secondary. Secondary is going to be a little bit younger this year, I think. But I think our linebacker should be improved now that Josh Ross, the old man, is finally gone. Very much appreciate Josh Ross's football IQ, but the man was slower than molasses out there. He just could not keep up with elite running backs, and it showed. So, Junior Colson, that's a name to watch out for as a guy that's going to probably be a really key component. He's going to be a linebacker for us this season. So look out for him as, a guy on the defense to watch out for.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of. So you got Michigan over Iowa then, and what does that
I
put you
think
at?
I think I mean
5-0
it's a
then.
classic Jim Harbaugh letdown spot, but I'd like to think we finally turned the corner as a program to where those games don't scare us anymore. We went into Wisconsin last year, we didn't won. We went into Penn State last year and won. And regardless of what people say about like the respective, talent of those two teams, we still had to go into packed houses in the Big Ten and win. So I like to think we've been able to turn that corner. And, as scary as Kinnick Stadium can be on October 1st, I like to think we come out of that one with a win.
So is that 5-0 then?
Yes, it would be.
5-0. Wow. So I've had I guess a 4-1, and I guess I'll kind of do a highlight like Derek did as well. I mean, there's a good bit to be excited for. I think with this year's MSU team, a lot of Mel Tucker a few years under his belt now, and he's been putting in the work, recruiting and in the transfer portal to really restock our coffers that were a bit low when he started up. I think our defense will be improved. I think
It's hard to get any worse in the secondary than they were last
correct,
year.
and so that's a big plus. And we always just seem to find gritty guys to make up our front. Nothing overly talented. Nothing really. It's never really NFL or high NFL stuff, but it's just a good unit of guys that always seem to work together and find a way to make a play when it needs to be made. And so I'm excited for hopefully being able to guard anyone in pass coverage. So I'm excited for that. The offense I'm a little bit more unsure about. I like Peyton Thorne. Can he be that guy? I'm not sure. I think he's a solid quarterback. I think right now to me he's a above average game manager is where I'd put him at right now. He's not gonna blow it. He's not gonna blow it for you. But does he have the stuff that Kirk Cousins, Connor Cook had? I mean, we'll see. I mean, this would be his year to really break out of the shadow of Kenneth Walker and show that. Now, speaking of that, we lose Kenneth Walker, who is a big part of our defense, or a big part of our offense, rather. However, we do bring in a lot of talent at the running back position via transfer portal, via having a lot of guys behind him that really didn't get a lot of time. So that's really an unknown. Can we get more of a by committee approach? Can somebody stand out and give us 3/4 of what Kenneth gave us? Can they give us, can we get a half out of one guy, another guy's 2/4? Can we make up some of that run game and improve in the passing game? I'm not sure. We still got some talent at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, Jaden Reed's going to bring it.
Yeah, Jaden Reed is definitely going to bring it. Unfortunately, lost Speedy Naylor. Would have loved to have him back for another year. I think this would have really been both of their years to really show out. I mean, I don't think anyone was really expecting Kenneth to do what he did, and just kind of balled out. Which I mean, both Naylor and Reed both played well, but it was obviously overshadowed by the season that Kenneth had. But I think that and I think this is kind of an overshadow of, you'll see in the rest of my record. But, for an overall trend, I guess, I think that Michigan State last year, I think our program is generally going in the right direction. I like what Mel Tucker's doing with this program. I think he's bringing a kind of swagger to the program that Michigan State's never really had before. So I kind of appreciate that. But, I'm also, one to, look with a lot of skepticism, because normally a lot of the teams that we were generally the blue blood on the block, not really, trying to keep a low profile. And now Mel Tucker's pulling up with G-Wagons on Spartan Stadium, and, trying to bring in all the big recruits and stuff, which I like, but, generally
I
those...
feel like that puts a bit of a target on your back, Bob.
Correct, and that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. But I think that...
For a team that thrives is having the chip on the shoulder, being the underdog, being overlooked, and all of a sudden,
Correct.
Mel Tucker's saying, hey, look at us.
That bring a lot of eyes. So, I don't know, that's good for recruiting, not really so good for the general Spartan mentality that we've had in the past. But, hey, I'll give him a chance. Try to build a new... If he, it's his program, trying to build it up. Got no problem with that. But when he started off, we were horrendous. We were Rocky Lombardi led. Props to Rocky, performed very well in the MAC. But the next year, in those, we're kind of moving into the next season. I think everybody was expecting a step up, but nothing crazy. And then we kind of got the Kenneth Walker cheat code. So I think our team was supposed to be decent, but I don't think. Kenneth Walker kind of probably was a 6-7 win team up to double digits, because he was just so good. And I think that this season, and then once again, as I'll kind of get to, especially with our next game being Ohio State at home, no prayer for us in that game. I think we'll make it more respectable than we did last year, but I still think that's a loss for us. And as an overall trend, I'll try to wrap this up, but I think MSU will continue to build in the right direction. However, I think this year will be back to what it should have been last year. This year, I think we'll be a 6 or 7 win team, and then the next year after, with another fresh batch of recruiting, another year under a lot of these guys' belts that we're bringing in, will be potentially ready. Payne Thorne, another year under his belt, will be ready to make that, maybe that double-digit win step.
Yeah, it's interesting because Mel Tucker deserves credit for finding Kenneth Walker, certainly.
Correct.
But also, it's hard to really gauge where MSU is at as a program because Kenneth Walker was so dang good last year.
Correct.
So I get where your cautious realism optimism comes from, because I'm the same way.
And I know that
MSU.
I remember we've both talked to other MSU fans that are through the roof on what the expectations are for the season, and I would love. Trust me, I'm really hoping I'm wrong on some of these predictions, but it just the fact that I think we're bringing in better recruiting classes than we did previously. That's got to bode well for us somewhere down the line. But is it this year? I just don't know. I think the defense is just going to be a little bit too young. And if Peyton's that guy, maybe we're ready. If Peyton's that guy, maybe he elevates us to a 9-win team. Maybe knocking on the door to double digits. But I still wish we were a little bit deeper at wide receiver too. So it's got some question marks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. For us, Indiana, we've got to go to Bloomington. Indiana's in a sort of transition period. They're not very good, and it's a noon game. I have a feeling that's going to be one of those games where you turn on the TV and Beth Mowins is there talking to a half-empty Bloomington crowd, because
that's the kind of game. Sorry to interrupt. That's the kind of game where you turn on the game, right? And Indiana's somehow up 7-0. And then they never score for the rest of the game. Like, it's just like, is Indiana going to pull it off? Oh my God, they struck it down the sideline, broke an 80-yard play. And then you look, and then the next second, Michigan's up 21-7, and it's over.
Correct. Yeah, I'll keep those words in mind if that ends up coming to fruition. But yeah, I like to think that's a fairly,
Easy one.
standard get the second stringers in at the fourth quarter type of game. 6-0.
Yeah. So next week, week after, so I've got us what at 4-2 at this point, heading into week 7. That's going to be a home game against Wisconsin. I've got us down for an L on that. That's just the cautious. I think that's just the cautious realism coming in. I don't. Here's the thing. I don't really have. I never really am a team that or a guy that has a lot of respect for the Wisconsin Badgers in football. I always tend to think that they're a little bit more overrated, just because once again that division is very weak, and Wisconsin just always looks good because all the other teams in it look bad. I
Correct.
mean, but it's a home game, or else I'd say it's a Camp Randall's a tough place to play. I mean, you never want to go to Camp Randall because because you never know what's going to happen. But I don't know. I still have a bad feeling about this game. This is definitely one though that I think if we were going to pick up a game, that I predict wrong, I think this is one of those where I could see me being wrong about this one because once again I just don't have that much faith in Wisconsin. However, on paper, are they a better team than us probably going into the year? Probably yes. And so for that, I'm probably going to say, especially coming off a loss to Ohio State, where are we going to be at with that? I'm just going to give us an L on that.
Yeah. I think I'll give you guys a W. I still have zero faith in Graham Mertz.
That's fair.
And
That's fair.
even though I feel silly for not remembering their freshman running back's name that burst onto the scene last year.
Is he the one
Um,
that transferred to us? No, that was the other guy.
Now that was a different one.
That burst onto the
I
scene the
can't
year
remember,
before.
but dude's basically like a mini Jonathan Taylor. So I have a feeling that game's going to be another
Barn
ground and pound
burner.
slugfest.
Correct.
Yeah. For us, we get Penn State.
Hmm.
It is already a maze out. Even before the actual lineup of the schedule came out, I believe that was already listed as a maze out, which to me screams night game in Ann Arbor. Um, I don't know what to make of Penn State. It seems like they recruit well every year, but their quarterback play is such a question mark that even though their defense always brings it, their linebackers and secondary especially are always very good. Offensively, I don't think they'll be able to do enough to hang with us. So
I mean
more,
when it comes down to it with Penn State, I mean I've watched a lot of Penn State teams that were mega hyped, mega talented, all the works. I think when it comes down to it, I don't think James Franklin's that good of a coach. I I mean, I think if we're telling the honest truth, I mean, how many times have we heard Penn State right there at the top, big game after big game, blowing it, left and right. I mean,
yeah.
I'm just surprised that he got re-upped for a massive extension. Because I think that was a year or two ago now. Because when they did that, I mean I understand he coaches at a top tier program, recruits well, which I mean that's something to be said for that. But at the same time, I mean, what does he have to show for it? I mean,
The only
absolutely,
the only
basically nothing.
reason the only reason James Franklin is as regarded as he is due to his special teams blocking that Ohio State kick and running it back for a touchdown. That's the only reason Penn State is even relevant. Because if that doesn't happen, they don't go to the Big Ten championship game that year, and they don't play Auburn in the Sugar Bowl. That just doesn't happen if they don't make that miraculous blocked kick. It also doesn't happen if Michigan drops that absolute heartbreaker in Iowa, because that was the JT was short year. In Ohio State, as I mentioned, had lost to Penn State, and however the tiebreakers shook out, if we wouldn't have lost to Iowa, we would have been the ones in the Big Ten championship that year.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know why James Franklin gets so much hype, considering they've been, to me at least, a pretty mediocre team for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Once again, we have all the talent. It's kind of I kind of get You know what vibes I get with Penn State a lot? I get very Notre Dame vibes from Penn State
Yeah.
all the time. It's just like mega talented, storied program, just doesn't produce,
I
doesn't
just
ever show
I
up.
just I just think when your quarterback is there for his sixth year,
Yeah,
Sean Clifford is entering his sixth year now. You've got some problems at the quarterback position if you've still got to have literally like a 25-year-old dude be your starting quarterback. Um,
I mean the thing with Sean Clifford is he's just good enough to strike fear into me, but he's not good enough to like go pro.
Lead Penn State to the promised
Yeah,
land.
correct, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, we play Penn State later. I'll talk about it then.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up is the bye week for us.
Do we both have bye weeks
So
on October 22nd?
we do both have bye weeks on October 22nd.
So we have
Shockingly, we come back. We
wow.
come back at the big house, October 29th. I've got that marked down as a dub for Michigan State. I have really no reason to mark this down as a dub, and I think that more than likely, with my how my schedule pans out, it will be the fact that we probably lose this game and win another one, which I've got us marked down as an L already. Which we probably won't lose, but we'll probably end up losing this one instead. But what kind of MSU fan would I be if I marked this down as an L already? And once again, what has Michigan? Michigan just hasn't shown it enough consistently against us for me to think that there's no chance that we win this game. I mean, there's definitely a chance that we win this game, and this is going to be down to the wire. This is going to be barn burner city. Everybody knows it. Both teams are going to be thinking. Michigan will be thinking, oh, we should win this by 10 points. The spread will be disrespectful, and it'll come down to, freaking field goal at the last second or, whatever, and it'll just be a barn burner.
Yeah, I would have been sorely disappointed if you had not marked that down as a W for MSU, Bob. I'm glad you did. We also have the bye week going into MSU.
That will just be disappointing for Michigan, for all Michigan football, all people in Michigan that enjoy football, because that is
Yeah,
no football to watch that week.
it's going to be so toxic. Social media from October 16th to October
Everybody's got time. Everybody's got time.
is going to be an absolute disaster. Um, I think, I really think that Michigan's mentality this year is going to be different. I think too often in the past 5 years, we've overlooked MSU as a team like Indiana, as a team like Illinois. We should win this game. I like to think that for those 13 days in between Penn State and MSU, last year's score is plastered all over Schembechler Hall, plastered all over the locker rooms, is plastered on every scoreboard, on every practice facility, and that the mentality for that game is going to be much different than it has been in the past. As a Michigan fan, I too will have this marked as a W for us. At home, yes, Mel Tucker's 2-0, but I think that first year is like an absolute wash because zero fans, and we were out there throwing Joe Milton and
The arm of a cannon. The arm of a
the
cannon.
arm of a cannon and the accuracy of a 3-year-old child.
Cannon of an arm.
I like either I was having like a fever dream or I read that like Michigan players who were on that team said, "Yeah, we were checked out. We really didn't care about playing. We were a 3-win team. We were trash." Um, this year I think is going to be different. I think we win by 3 scores. I think this team comes out
Blowout. Wow.
on a mission, an absolute mission to say enough is enough, line in the sand. We're done being punked by MSU, and at home they just lay it on. That's my hope. Obviously, rivalry games usually end up being much closer than that, but I don't know. Just for some reason, and I'll get a better feel for it as the year goes on because I've had a pretty good feel for Michigan football teams as the year goes on. Like, I don't know what their mentality is. You know, I like to think that I'm at this point on the money for their mentality, and it'll be very interesting for that podcast going into that week, sort of where we stand on our respective
I
teams.
was just about to say that because worst comes to worst, we're 1-6 or whatever. I'm gonna yell. I'm gonna yell. Trickery will be afoot, as always.
Yeah,
Trickery will be afoot, and somehow we'll find a way to do it. But
the D'Antonio
the
specials
Dance
out
Ponyo
there
special,
was.
correct? And but Derek, I'm not going to lie to you. I am concerned that this could get out of hand, and this could get out of hand quickly. I think if it goes wrong for either team, it's likely to be Austin. It's likely to be blowout Michigan, and that would be very concerning as the Mason Blue at the big house will be just erupting.
Yeah, I think they're. I don't think the coaches are going to let them forget the fourth quarter lead that they blew last year.
I mean,
I
that's
just, I
fair.
just don't see it happening.
That's fair. Well, so that puts me at what 5-3, and you at 8-0.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
8-0. Good Lord have mercy.
I'm
Um,
high on us this year. I gotta be.
Going into next week, fresh off of Michigan, we had lost two straight, Ohio State and Wisconsin. We come back with a win against Michigan off the bye week. Following that up with at Illinois, sorry, the Fighting Illini have no chance. They're bottom feeders, and they will remain as such. They weren't good with Lovie Smith, who's now coaching a pro team, and they're not going to be much good with whoever they got now, and I couldn't even tell you who that is. So,
Brett Bielema,
Brett
former
Bielema,
Wisconsin coach.
Brett Bielema downgraded massively. What is he doing? Good Lord. No fear of Brett Bielema at all. Spartans by 15.
I like it. We go visit Greg Schiano in Piscataway, New Jersey, at Rutgers. Rutgers is a team that strikes ungodly fear into my heart because the
Oh
past two
no. Oh
years,
no.
the
Oh
past two
no.
years they have had us on the ropes, Bobby Epler, and you've watched those games with me
Yep.
on the ropes. But this time, we get Rutgers in the back half of the season and not in the front half of the
So
season.
they don't think they have hope at this point.
That's my hope. I'm hoping Rutgers is at a point where maybe they're at like 2 wins and they're not really fighting really hard to get bowl eligibility. Um, or shoot, maybe they've already reached 6 wins and they have bowl eligibility, and then, maybe they're not playing with as big of an edge. But I think at that point, coming off the win against Michigan State, we're going to be a well-oiled machine and we're just going to stomp Rutgers. I mean, it has to happen. We cannot let Rutgers hang around.
I mean, although, if you were going to drop the ball off the high of MSU, once again, it could
Correct.
be against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who continue to have the Michigan Wolverine number, or almost so. Can they crack the code? Greg Schiano, I've loved his coaching job at Rutgers. I love how they fight. Can he get them over that hump and get that signature win that they so desperately crave out there in Piscataway?
I hope not.
Let's hope it's not the Michigan Wolverines because, we already know who let them get their first bid in the Big Ten Conference so many years ago at this point. Oh, no.
2014, when that was the dark ages of Michigan football. I think we lost to Rutgers and Maryland in the same
I
year.
mean, that's just, you never want to see it. Next week, we are now 6-3 on the eplometer here for Spartan football. We're going to be at home against Rutgers, fresh off a loss to the Michigan Wolverines, and unfortunately, the Piscataway is not going to travel to East Lansing very well, and we're going to give. If Big Brother can't get it done, Little Brother will get it done against the Scarlet Knights, and we will avenge it. We will avenge not only the Michigan Wolverines should they drop the ball, but we will avenge them using fake Sparty to no avail. Because if anyone wants to go take a look at the pictures of freaking the Scarlet Knight in Sparty. It's like they took Sparty and then
Off-brand,
put a red paint all over him. It's just gross.
off-brand Sparty. Yeah,
Correct.
I was right. Maryland, 2014 came into Ann Arbor and won, and Rutgers also beat us in 2014. Um, since then, we beat Maryland by 28, 56, 25, 21, 31, and 41. So, hoping for repeat performance. Uh, November 12th, trap game of all trap games. Nebraska at home. I don't know what to make of Nebraska. I always thought Adrian Martinez held them back from their full potential. He's no longer there. I don't know enough about their current quarterback situation. I think did they get that Kansas State no, Adrian Martinez went to Kansas State. They brought in someone, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember who it is. But until Nebraska shows me that they're not Nebraska, and until they show me that they can like not get stomped on the road against us, then I have to take us. We're going to beat Nebraska. We have to.
And you see, that is just now that we're what are we? We're now 7-3. So we got bowl eligibility. Spartans have bowl eligibility at this point. Potentially 6-4 if we lose to Michigan. Oh no. But this is where my hot take of the season comes in, and like I said, if we may end up having to switch this result with the Michigan results, when it all shakes out, because that's probably much more likely. But this was my hot take going into the season. At home against the Hoosiers, I've got us taking a defeat to the Hoosiers.
Oh no, not Indiana.
We're running a 3-game win streak, and the thing with Michigan State and win streaks is once the win streak starts, it's time to blow it immediately because we can't let it get going too hot. I mean, last season when we were bound for the promised land, potentially going to the Big Ten championship game, we were looking beautiful. We blew it to Purdue, who had no business beating us at all. And this season, I feel like there's going to be one of those games that's going to happen this season. And why not Indiana when nobody thinks they have a chance in bleep of beating us? But like I said, maybe that's flip that with the Michigan result. We win against Indiana, lose against Michigan. But I still think there's going to be a game like that. So I marked it down for Indiana. Maybe we lose to Rutgers and then beat Indiana, or something like that, or maybe we lose to Illinois or something. But I've got
regardless, you at 7-4.
Yeah, regardless, I've got us at 7-4. Once again, I just don't think we're gonna have much respect for Indiana, and so that's kind of why I said we overlooked that with bowl eligibility secured, not playing for a title, and just kind of below that one.
Yeah, so big week for us, senior day versus the Fighting Illini. Could be a close one. Could be a barn burner. Probably not. I'm hoping this is a tune-up game in preparation for next week's, massive potential Big Ten championship decider. Illinois is probably going to score like maybe 10 points. And we're going to drop a fat 40 bomb and be on our merry way to Columbus.
Was that 12-0?
11.
11-0? Wow. I mean, bold takes from Derek Rizzio, but I can't say that they're unwarranted at this point. I really cannot fight him on any of these picks.
We have a very soft schedule. Illinois, Nebraska, Rutgers, Indiana, Maryland.
That is
our toughest game.
Wow.
Arguably our toughest game is going to be at Iowa. Because as good as MSU and as good as Penn State will be, those games are at home. So until Ohio State, likely, the most difficult game is at Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, once again, though, that MSU game, if that goes off the rails for you, that could potentially sink what could be a massive season for the Wolverines.
Maybe, but it didn't last year.
but it didn't last year. That's right. But you did end up picking it up against Ohio State, which was big.
At home.
If you don't repeat that though,
Yes.
you'll be looking at the Michigan State game as the derailer. And
Correct.
speaking
Correct.
of the nail in the coffin, the nail will come for the Spartans season in the final week of the season when they travel to Happy Valley to face the Penn State Nittany Lions, in which I've got chalked up as an L. So
Oh no. Bob, not sure 6th-year Sean Clifford thrown all over
I mean,
you.
6 years Sean Clifford at senior day. I mean, tears will get the handkerchiefs, get the tissues. Sean Clifford finally done. Ding dong, the witch is dead. But they're going out busting us up in what will probably be an afternoon to evening game, just for the fact that it's freaking Penn State. But oh my gosh, I'd plan for the land grant trophy or something. But
Mm-hmm. The
anyway,
classic.
anyway, the Nittany Lion unfortunately will drop his fat nuts all over us, and it will not be good. So that puts me at 7-5 for the MSU Spartans on the season.
Yes, it does. And for the big one,
The big one,
Michigan at Ohio State, noon, as always, on Fox,
undefeated,
as
undefeated.
always, undefeated. And once again, Michigan does not get it done in Columbus. I would love to be proved wrong. Would love to be proved wrong. But in good conscience, I just cannot have us taking the victory in Columbus. I hate to say it, and I really do hope and pray we get proved wrong. But this is one of those times where, they showed me last year that they can beat Ohio State at home. But we haven't won at Ohio State since I've been alive. And so until they can prove that to me, that they can go into Columbus and win and not fold, I just I just have to say before the season starts that it's just not going to happen. So perhaps that'll change as the season progresses if you know we decide to finally roll with JJ McCarthy at quarterback and have the ceiling be at its unlimited potential. But as of right now, gotta say that Ohio State gets us again, 11-1.
Now, do you think that Ohio State will be undefeated going into that game?
I'd find it very hard to believe that they wouldn't be.
Okay, so you think that will be a battle of two undefeated teams, potentially number 1 and 2. I
Correct.
mean, imagine that. I mean, talk about the history. I mean, that wouldn't be the first time, I don't think, that we've seen that from the Michigan Ohio State rivalry, and that would just be, I mean, game day, I mean, Fox, noon, kickoff, whatever. We'll be
Mm-hmm.
there, all eyes on that game. And man, that could just be one of those moments where it's two teams that are going to be in the college football playoff at that point. Or it
Yeah.
could, or maybe for Michigan, it's their schedule's Garbaggio. What have they really proven? I mean, who was ranked when they? I mean, Iowa maybe will be ranked.
Yeah.
Penn State may be ranked. Maybe us if we're on a roll at that point. Who knows? But I mean,
It's
tough,
we've got to
tough
prove
say.
they've got to prove it to me. Last year I went into that game thinking there was hope,
Mm-hmm.
but that it was unlikely
Okay.
because I had watched, you know, for a few weeks teams that were not very good passing the ball, getting a lot of open looks, and if their players were better, they could have made us pay. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how the season shakes out, but um, we haven't been competitive in Columbus since JT was short. That was the last time we were competitive in Columbus. So they're probably going to be out for blood, considering we pulled a COVID on them in 2020 and tucked our tails and ran. I'm completely unashamed to admit that we definitely used COVID as an excuse that year. I fully believe it, but I think we'll be out with something to prove, but until we can start matching Ohio State's talent on the recruiting trail, it's just tough to win there.
That is.
Um,
Who's going to be quarterbacking the Buckeyes this year?
CJ Stroud, and what is hopefully his
Again.
last year.
Wow. Ugh, that's not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Not what you want to hear. Coming to Detroit, maybe, maybe not. We will have to
Let's hope
see.
we're not in that position, Bob.
That's absolutely hope. We already did those tier lists. So if you want to know who we think will be in that position, go check out our NFC tier list. Did a great job on that just a couple weeks ago. So
Good plug. Good plug of the previous episode.
thank you, thank you.
So yeah, that'll take care of our sort of preseason predictions for U of M MSU.
Correct.
Got Michigan at 11-1, MSU with a
7-5.
crisp 7-5. Very easily could be 8-4. Very easily could be 9-3. Very easily could be like 4-8. Who knows with MSU?
I mean, that
They're
is
in
just correct.
a um. Do we want to do
The
just a quick, very quick sort of what we think the um, football divisions will line out, and then give a Big Ten championship prediction?
Yeah, I think so. So I guess I'll start with the East. I think that it's going to be business as usual in the East this season. I don't really think there's anything to think that with how the normal pegging order falls that it will fall any different. I think it normally stands with Ohio State clearly defined as the top spot. I think there's little reason to think that that wouldn't happen again. Maybe Michigan upsets them the final week, but it will probably come to that final week once again. So,
Agreed.
so Ohio State probably at number one. I'm looking at Michigan probably number two. I think I have more faith in their big game potential than I do Penn State, and so I put them above Penn State. I've got Penn State third, probably us trailing Penn State, maybe in a tie with Maryland. And then Rutgers, then Indiana, but somewhere in that. But once we get past Penn State, it's kind of just maybe us if we exceed expectations from where I've got us. But it's going to be kind of a logjam, and nobody's going to really even be relevant at that point. When you look at the West, once again, where the West is really won is going to be who knows. If you ask me right now, I think Iowa wins that division. I think I just have the most faith in their overall team. They always seem to show up every year and be good. It's just a matter of can somebody top them, because they're always going to be very consistent right around that 9-10 win mark. But can somebody knock them off? Can somebody get to that same mark while beating them? And right now with Wisconsin, Purdue, I'm not really. I mean, I got to see it to believe it with them. Minnesota, Northwestern, Illinois, and Nebraska. We got Iowa once again taking the cake, but I think it will be Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue, Minnesota, Northwestern, tied with Nebraska, then Illinois.
And I'm gonna be a little bit different in the East Division from you. Um, Ohio State at 1, Michigan at 2. I'm gonna put MSU and Penn State tied at 3. I can see them both being 3-loss teams, so I'm gonna put you guys both at 9-3. Rutgers, I'm gonna put next, and then Maryland, and then Indiana. I think Rutgers is on the precipice of bowl eligibility. I think they'll probably be tied with Maryland. They'll probably both be 6-6. And then Indiana will be lucky to get. They'll probably get all 3 wins in the non-conference, and maybe if no, Rutgers will beat Indiana too if they play them. I don't even know if they do, but Indiana's wins I imagine are all going to come in the non-conference unless they get a game against like Illinois or Northwestern. And then speaking of the West Division, I am going to take Purdue just because Purdue seems like a fun team to pick in the West for literally zero reason other than that Aiden O'Connell is probably the second best, third best QB in the Big Ten. So I'll put Purdue at 1. I'll shake it up a little bit, put Wisconsin at 2, Illinois at 3. I think it's a little bit of a down year for them.
Illinois at 3 or
Iowa at 3.
Iowa?
Iowa at 3. um, Minnesota at 4. Nebraska at 5. Maybe I think they'll get 5 wins and they'll be right on the edge of bowl eligibility. And then I'll round it out with Northwestern was so bad. I'll go Illinois Northwestern to round it out. Did I say
Fair.
Minnesota at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. They'll probably be a 6-win team right above Nebraska. So yeah.
I think that's
So,
fair. I think it's fair.
so Ohio State Purdue will be my championship prediction.
But I got
Nice.
Iowa, Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that'll.
I would ask Dennis what his thoughts on the American Conference again,
Yeah.
but you know,
Yeah, Dennis, what are your thoughts on Michigan and Michigan State's sort of outlooks? Thank you, Dennis. Very cool. We appreciate your insight.
thank you.
Um, as always, very insightful, very intelligent, well-spoken thoughts from
Yeah,
Dennis Weaver.
agreed.
So yeah, that'll. I think next week, when assuming Dennis returns, we never know. Um, we'll preview sort of what we think for our own respective higher education teams. Me being out at the University of Arizona, Bobby at Central Michigan, and Dennis at Villanova. And maybe if we're feeling, gracious and fortuitous, we'll let him talk about UC. Maybe.
Maybe.
Um,
I mean, he's got to make
Maybe.
it up to us.
Correct. And then probably the week after that, we might get into some sort of college football playoff talk and college football realignment talk, since this will be really the last season with college football as we currently know it as it stands before all the big changes start taking place. Um, so yeah, outside of that, we'll do a little NBA talk. Um, I know we're starting to get up there in time, so this won't take too long. But the NBA schedules were released today, Bobby Epler, as I'm sure you're aware.
Correct.
And it's been in the news for a couple weeks now, but the Detroit Pistons are bringing back the teal jerseys. Me and Bob are ecstatic. As you can see, Dennis is smiling. He's happy for us.
Correct.
The teal is back. And in order to, promote Detroit and promote the teal, the NBA decided to give the Pistons exactly 0 nationally televised games this year. So with one of the most exciting young cores in the NBA with Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Killian Hayes, Beef Stew, Sadiq Bey, they're not going to get any prime time. And I think that's a shame. And the city of Detroit will not stand for it. Perhaps at one point, when we start fighting for the play-in spot, maybe they'll give us some shine. But I think it's a shame that the national audiences will not be able to see the teal in its full glory.
I mean, to not see the Mustang show up, it's just an absolute travesty. I mean, you and I have been waiting years for this. I mean, I can
Correct.
remember late nights in Sweeney Hall at CMU discussing when are those teals coming back? When are those teals coming back? Gotta have those teals back. When we were dying through the Blake Griffin, and I know what he's about to show, when we were dying through those Blake Griffin years of just mediocrity. But it's time for them to come back. And once again, I don't know. I think this Pistons team has a lot of potential. And thank you. Is that the Grant Hill special? I think it is. It is.
That's the Grant Hill special.
I mean, thank you, number 33, for your service. And Derek got to put that, got to don that for the rest of the episode, I would say. But
That's right.
this team I don't think is going to be that bad. I really think this team has a high ceiling. So I'm kind of like you, Derek. I'm kind of disappointed that the NBA didn't really try to shine more light on us. I mean, Cade as being the number one pick. I mean, and I've said this to you many times, but I think the national media just hates giving Detroit their time in the sun. I mean, how often do you hear about them any sports talk shows. Now, fair, granted, they've been horrendous in most sports recently, but
Correct.
even when they're good, sports talk shows, national TV games, like those have never really been something associated with Detroit. However, I mean, Kid Cunningham, number one pick, highly touted, and you didn't hear really a peep about him once he started playing in Detroit, and he was averaging pretty big numbers for a rookie. So just kind of disappointing. But Detroit versus everybody, just help further that mentality, get this young core playing well.
I mean, I thought for sure because we open up the season with Orlando. Why wouldn't you want to showcase last year's number one pick versus this year's number one overall pick? Paulo Banchero versus Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. I mean, that to me seems like promoting your young stars and, to the national audience. But like you said, Detroit versus everybody. I guess the teal jerseys will have to wait 4 more years to see the national spotlight, assuming we don't make the play-in. But I think the Pistons are a team that could push for a play-in spot.
I agree. I think that
Certainly, I
ceiling is
don't
high.
think. I think they're a little too young to really get up into that 5, 6 seed range. In the East has gotten pretty deep in terms of like its competitive depth over the past couple of years. But when the NBA announced their rivalry week and they had the Bulls playing the Hornets, I nearly barfed. I mean, you could have went with Detroit versus Chicago. You could have went
Massive
with Detroit
rivalry.
versus Indiana, Detroit
Massive.
versus Cleveland.
Massive.
There is no rivalry with Chicago and Charlotte other than that it's Lonzo versus LaMelo Ball.
I was
other
letting
than
you get
Lonzo
that
versus
one.
other than Lonzo versus LaMelo Ball, there is no rivalry with the
And
Bulls
that
and the
Michael
Hornets.
Jordan now owns the team and he played on the other one.
Maybe that's it. But since when have the Bulls and Hornets ever had a rivalry?
Never.
That answer would be never.
The Hornets would have to be relevant for them to have a rivalry, which they've never been relevant.
Correct. Correct. They haven't been relevant since Chris Paul. And even then, they were mostly bottom feeders outside of that one year where they had like Chris Paul and Peja Stojakovic and all those guys.
But wasn't that the Hornets? Wasn't it? I mean, wasn't that in New Orleans?
You're right. That was when they were
Because
still
it
in
was
New
the Charlotte
Orleans. Yeah.
Bobcats.
Correct. So yes, the Charlotte Hornets have been irrelevant ever since Muggsy Bogues and Alonzo Mourning. And
Correct.
yeah, those guys. They've been
Correct.
irrelevant since then. Thank you for pointing that out, Bob. Dennis, why didn't you help us out there, you jerk?
Sorry,
But
Derek.
yeah.
Sorry, Derek. I actually never watched the NBA before in my life.
But yeah, I just had to get that off my chest that I thought it was pretty lame that the Pistons did not get any nationally televised
That's
games
just a
this
joke.
year.
That's a joke. That's an absolute
Yeah.
joke.
But the Teal's back, baby. Bob, are you going to be making a trip down to Little Caesars Arena?
I saw one of those Teal games that was on the schedule is against Brooklyn, so I might have to get down. Actually, a couple of them are against Brooklyn, so I might have to get down there and see what is left of the Brooklyn Nets against my Detroit Pistons. But no, and maybe Derek makes a flight up from Arizona and we catch a game. It's potentially it could potentially in the works. Go on GTT live from Little Caesars Arena. You could hear it here first.
That would be something. If that were to work out and I was able to meet you December 20th for that game against Utah, that'd be pretty epic.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess now we'll get into everyone's favorite segment that we all know and love, the right bench baller. Bob, do you want to start off with your right bench baller of the week?
I will, and it's going to be none other than Kansas City Royal. And of course, we've got to go to the MLB every week for our right bench baller. Once football and basketball start back up again, we will be varying it up much more. Don't trust me. But right now, unless you're a soccer fan like me, there's not really much others to draw from than baseball at the moment. So going back to
All due respect to the WNBA, but I'm just not in tune with that league.
correct. Maybe if Dennis was here, he would have gone for the WNBA. We can't speak for him, but he's not here, obviously. Anyway, I'm going to go with none other than first baseman for the Kansas City Royals, Rookie Vinny Pasquantino, who
The
absolutely
Italian Nightmare Bob.
the Italian nightmare, who's just been absolutely raking since being called up for the Royals earlier this year. Um, really, the only reason I found out about him at all is because I needed somebody to pick up in my fantasy baseball league that we're both in. All three of us are a member of, and for first base options, he was surprisingly productive. And I've owned him for about a week, and he's just been on a tear. Multiple home runs in that span. Had a back-to-back homers over the past 2 weeks, and has just been overall getting on base. So just overall shout out to Vinny. Plus, he's got that cool nickname, the Italian Nightmare, which I mean, just you can't sleep on. I mean, when was the last time I mean, I can't. This is the last time you've heard of a Italian American player that was, lighting it up in the MLB.
True.
None that I can really think of in recent memory. So, good for Vinny. Carrying the pride out there with them, and once again, showing up for my fantasy team.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I like to think I'm fairly knowledgeable about baseball in the last, I don't know, 15, 20
Yeah.
years. Italian MLB players. I can't think of anything. Let's see what Google has to say.
I mean, this would be interesting. I mean, I can't really think of anybody based on like names. I mean,
Literally, all of them are not
is he straight
worth
from
mentioning.
Italy, or like did he actually was he actually born in the States?
Let me look.
I'm
Yeah,
generally curious.
the most relevant Italian that I recognize is Francisco Cervelli, who was a longtime catcher for the Pirates and a number of other organizations. Um, that's the last relevant.
He
Yes,
was
he was born in Richmond, Virginia.
Gotcha.
That's the last relevant Italian baseball player that I saw. My right bench baller is actually going to be from my opponent in fantasy baseball this week, Dennis, who conveniently happened to not be able to talk today because I turned his 7-2 lead that he had over me into a 5-3-1 lead for myself. So naturally, Dennis isn't here for me to be able to jive him at all.
Couldn't face
Uh,
it.
but but Dennis's entire team has been carried by Yandy freaking Diaz. Since Monday, Yandy has 3 2-hit performances and it has 1 homer and 8 RBI. Those 8 RBI account for 8 of 20 of Dennis's team RBIs. Just absolutely disgusting
Went
from a
yard. Went
guy
yard.
that, yes, he's been a very solid OBP player, but for him to have 8 RBIs and 7 hits
And home
since
runs.
Monday and a home run is just disgusting. So, congratulations to Yandy Diaz. Hopefully, he quits running me amok the rest of the week. But
Yeah, been producing to no end, should I say, for Dennis. Dennis, I'd like to get your thoughts, but you're not here, and we're never going to let you forget it. So now it's time for everybody's favorite segment, where we, favorite or least favorite, depending on what picks you ride with. But none other than garbage time takes your money, and once again, I love to choose games that are obscure and close in the money, close in the lines. So we're gonna head.
do we want to recap last week's
We do. We do want
yeah,
to do that.
last week's games
We do want to
first?
do that. You're right. I apologize.
So last week we had the Cubs Reds
Field of Dreams.
game. The Field of Dreams game. The over under was set at 8.5, and I believe that game was 4-2.
Yes, I believe that's right.
Regardless, I know for sure that it was the under, which makes Bobby our big winner for the week. He took the under and the Cubbies, who were victorious that night. I took the over in the Cubs because I thought there would be more home runs hit at a stadium that's a little bit shorter than the ones they usually play at. And Dennis also went 1 for 2. He took the under and the Reds.
He also had that the Dennis
Nick
special.
Lodolo strikeout special.
And that was way under, so far under that Dennis should be embarrassed to even have suggested that disaster area. So Dennis, you didn't fall to 0-3, but you should have fallen to 0-3.
Facts.
All right, so for this week's matchup, we're going to be going, just to rub it in Selton Dennis's wound again, we're going to be going to the Reds again. Reds Pirates. It's going to be at the Pirates. What is that? What's the name of their field?
PNC Park.
That's what I thought, but I didn't want to get it wrong. PNC Park. It's going to be the Graham Ashcraft on the mound tomorrow for the Reds, who actually did get the pleasure of seeing pitch in person. And none other than Bryce Wilson for the Pirates. Derek, initial thoughts. I'll let you know that the over-under is at 7.5 runs. And the money line is -120 for the Reds.
All right, so I don't know too much about this Wilson dude. I know Graham Ashcroft, or whatever the heck his name, Ashcraft, has been hit or miss in his starts, I think. At PNC Park,
Last three outings for Bryce Wilson. 4 runs, 1 run, 3 runs. This season he's had 71 innings pitched with 54 earned.
so nearly an earned run an inning. Okay. I mean, what would I be if I didn't stick to my guns and take the over? So I'm going to take the over. The Pirates playing at home. I'm going to take the Pirates. Screw you, Dennis. You should have been here to convince me otherwise. Give me the Pirates. Give me the over.
Yeah, I think once again I'm gonna have to ride with you on the over. Bryce Wilson, I mean, I think I said 54 earned. Sorry, it's 54 total runs and 47 earned. My bad. But I mean, it's just. I mean, I'm looking at this and it's just been nothing but garbaggio from Bryce Wilson. But Graham Ashcraft, once again, this last outing was nothing to write home about. I think at this point, with 2 bad pitchers on the mound, or 2 below average pitchers on the mound, you got to think the better offense takes the day. And I think the Pirates have the better offense. So once again, I'm going to match you, Derek. We can go with the Pirates and the over. Which means that Dennis preliminarily has the Reds in the under, because that's how it works here at GTT.
Usually.
If you don't show up.
Correct.
So,
Watch him go 2 for 2 because we gave him the under in the Reds.
I mean, just grotesque. Graham Ashcraft and Bryce Wilson just shove out of their minds. I spared us of the Martin Perez outing tomorrow, Derek, but that was going to be my runner-up selection.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. But yeah, that'll, bet with us at your own risks. Once again, 3 guys, 3 completely different. There's 0 consensus on this panel. If you want to know who to ride with and who to fade, I can give you that real quick. I am 0 for 4 on over-under, but 3 for 4 on the money line. Dennis is 2 for 4 on over-under and 2 for 4 on the money line. And Bob is 3 for 4 on the money line and 2 for 4 on the over-under. So take those picks at your own risk. Looks like the 2 guys that are good on the money line, me and Bob, are both riding with Pittsburgh. So maybe we're both 3 and 4 money line guys. You never know. But yeah, thank you, Bob, for another great Garbage Time Takes Your Money pick. Looking forward to it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Dennis, you got any thoughts before we wrap the show up? Thank you, Dennis. We appreciate your insight yet again. Beautiful smile. Love to see. I don't know how you've been, out in the sun on that same golf course all day, but props to you, friend. But yeah, that'll wrap it up for this episode. Lord, Lord willing, Dennis will be back next week, but you never know. Perhaps he'll be off gallivanting on the Holling Scholarship in Scotland again. Who knows? Out there playing the old course. But that'll wrap it up for me and Bob. Hopefully, just the two of us were able to provide you with enough entertainment to get us through the week. I like to think we did a pretty good job, and hopefully Dennis is, prepared to join us next time when he gets his priorities in line. Bob, go ahead and plug the socials for the people.
At Garbage Time Takes on Instagram, at Garbage Time Takes on YouTube. You can find our website where we have some new articles actually in the description of this YouTube video here. At Garb Time Takes on Twitter, and that should handle it.
Awesome. Well, since we're not going to have any final words from Bob, and we got a great plugging of the socials or we're not going to get any words from Dennis, and we got a great plugging of the socials from Bob, that'll wrap it up. How are we going to do the countdown without our third member, Bob?
I think we just do. I think we just when Dennis would have said one, we just let there be silence, and then just
Okay.
come in and say peace. Like wait,
Okay.
stop for a second, and then peace.
All right, we'll see how good our timing is on this one. It should be interesting, but I'm gonna try and have a good mental clock here, and hopefully we're, in sync. But with that, we'll see you guys in next week's episode. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate all the support, and that'll do it from here. So in three,
Two,
peace.
peace.